The chamber was supposed to be just another heated congressional hearing, but within seconds the air changed. Cameras were rolling live, millions were watching, and then Jasmine Crockett did something no one had expected. She pulled out a folder, thick with documents, her voice sharp as steel. "Mr. Trump, these are not rumors, these are not opinions. These are your signatures, your transfers, your hidden dealings." The room froze. Donald Trump, sitting across from her, smirked at first, ready to brush it off with his usual bravado. But then Crockett read aloud one damning line from the evidence, a bank record dated during his presidency, showing millions moved into an account tied to an offshore entity. Gasps rippled through the chamber. The camera zoomed in on Trump's face as his expression shifted from smug confidence to sudden tension. Viewers at home leaned closer to their screens, realizing they were witnessing something historic. This was not just another exchange of words. It was a moment where truth pierced through spectacle, and Trump, for the first time in that hearing, looked rattled. The clash was no longer about politics. It was about evidence, raw and undeniable, landing like a hammer in front of the world. The backdrop to this confrontation had been building for weeks. A congressional committee was digging into allegations of secret financial networks tied to Donald Trump, networks that critics claimed had shielded millions from public view. The hearing was televised, every major network streaming it live, every headline already drafted in anticipation of fireworks. Members of Congress filled the long tables, some leaning forward with sharpened questions, others rehearsing defenses to shield their ally. Journalists packed the press gallery, their pens racing, their phones buzzing as they live-tweeted each second. Around the world, people tuned in, drawn by the promise of a showdown. It was not just another political skirmish. It was framed as a decisive test of accountability, where truth would either shine or be buried under spin. Jasmine Crockett, known for her fierce cross-examinations, had positioned herself as the central figure in this drama. Her opponents whispered she was grandstanding. Her supporters praised her as fearless. Trump entered the chamber defiant, flanked by loyalists who nodded with each word he muttered. He thrived on chaos, believing that spectacle itself was his strongest weapon. But this time, the spectacle was bigger than even he could control. The committee had allowed live cameras to broadcast without interruption. Social media platforms carried split-screen feeds, Crockett on one side, Trump on the other, the tension visible even through glass screens. Hashtags exploded before the first words were spoken. The atmosphere was electric, a collision of law, politics, and performance art. As the chair banged the gavel to order, everyone knew this would not be a polite exchange of testimony. This was destined to be a battle broadcast to the globe, where reputations would rise or fall in real time. And in that charged space, Crockett leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Trump, ready to ignite the storm. The first exchange started with interruptions. As Crockett unfolded the papers and began reading line after line, Trump cut in with his booming voice. "Lies, all lies. You people are desperate." His words echoed through the chamber, but Crockett refused to yield. She raised her voice over his, crisp and deliberate. "This document is your bank's record, Mr. Trump. It shows a transfer of $5 million to an account in Cyprus, dated during your presidency. Do you deny this is your signature?" Trump leaned forward, wagging his finger. "That's fabricated. You Democrats will do anything to smear me." Gasps came from the audience as Crockett calmly flipped to another page. "And this," she continued, "is a recording of your own associate acknowledging the account exists, that you instructed him to keep it hidden. These are his words, Mr. Trump, not mine." She pressed play, and the voice crackled through the speakers, a man describing the Cyprus account set up at Trump's request. The room erupted. Members shouted over one another, the chairman pounding the gavel. Trump slammed his hand on the table, his face red, his words spilling in rapid bursts. "This is a witch hunt! Fake evidence! You're all corrupt!" Yet his volume only highlighted his desperation. Crockett, unshaken, cut through the noise with another blow. "Your offshore dealings are not about politics, sir. They are about truth, law, and accountability. And today, the American people are seeing it live." Viewers at home watched in disbelief. Clips of Trump's shouting versus Crockett's steady voice were already circulating on Twitter and TikTok. Cable networks replayed the exchange in real time, commentators struggling to keep pace with the storm. For every outburst Trump made, Crockett had another document, another quote, another undeniable piece of evidence. The tension thickened. Loyal Republicans tried to intervene, raising procedural objections, shouting, "Point of order!" But each interruption only underscored how explosive the revelations were. The spectacle grew larger than the chamber itself, a clash that was simultaneously a legal battle, a media frenzy, and a cultural moment. Trump, once the master of controlling the spotlight, now found himself trapped inside it. Every denial seemed weaker, every accusation more frantic. Crockett's calm persistence turned the tables. She was no longer just questioning him, she was cornering him, live, before the entire nation. The hearing reached its boiling point when Crockett held up one final sheet of paper. Her tone slowed, deliberate, cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Mr. Trump, this is a signed authorization from your office instructing funds to be routed through a shell corporation using an alias we can now prove is yours. This is not speculation. This is your handwriting, your directive, your trail." Trump bolted upright, his voice cracking as he shouted, "I never signed that! It's fake, completely fake!" But Crockett didn't flinch. She leaned into the microphone and read aloud the most explosive line. "Authorize immediate transfer, confidential, do not disclose, D. Trump." The words echoed in the chamber like a thunderclap. Silence fell for a split second before the uproar began. Members of the committee shouted simultaneously, reporters scrambled to capture the line, and the audience gasped so loudly it was picked up by the microphones. Trump slammed his fist against the table, pointing at Crockett. "You're a disgrace! You should be ashamed of yourself!" His voice was raw, more desperate than defiant, his fury boiling over. But Crockett delivered the killing blow with calm precision. "The disgrace is not in revealing the truth, Mr. Trump. The disgrace is in hiding it from the American people." The chamber exploded into chaos. Applause broke out on one side, furious protests on the other. The chairman's gavel pounded in vain as Trump shouted over the noise, his words now incoherent, a storm of denial and rage. Crockett remained still, her point delivered, her evidence unveiled. Social media lit up instantly. Clips of the phrase, "The disgrace is in hiding it from the American people," spread like wildfire. News tickers labeled the moment as historic. Hashtags declaring "Trump meltdown" and "Crockett's evidence" trended worldwide. For viewers, this was the climax they had been waiting for. A confrontation where power clashed with proof, where denial cracked under the weight of documents read aloud for the world to hear. Trump, usually the one who turned drama to his advantage, found himself engulfed by it. His eruption was no longer a show of strength, but a revelation of weakness. And as Crockett's words echoed, the perception shifted. Here was a man cornered, and a congresswoman who had just shaken the ground beneath him. The storm inside the chamber did not end when the gavel finally brought order. In fact, it was only the beginning. Within minutes, every major network cut into regular programming with breaking news banners. Commentators replayed Crockett's final words again and again, dissecting the explosive revelation. For Trump's loyal base, the meltdown was painted as proof that he was being unfairly attacked. But for millions of others, the images told a different story. A man cornered by evidence, stripped of control in a way the world had rarely seen. Crockett's steady composure became the focus of interviews, headlines, and late-night monologues. She was praised as fearless, the congresswoman who looked Trump in the eye and forced the nation to confront what had been hidden. Her words were quoted in editorials. "The disgrace is in hiding it from the American people." It became a rallying cry for those demanding transparency and accountability, a phrase that carried weight far beyond the walls of Congress. Trump, meanwhile, faced a tidal wave of fallout. His defenders scrambled to shift the narrative, accusing Crockett of exploitation and fabrication. Yet each attempt fell flat against the sheer clarity of the evidence she had read aloud. Editorial boards declared it a defining political moment. Pollsters reported a sudden shift in public opinion, as undecided viewers leaned away from him after witnessing his rage live on camera. The spectacle had transcended politics. Families debated it at dinner tables, workplaces buzzed with arguments, social media drowned in memes, clips, and fiery threads. Trump's meltdown wasn't just a headline. It was a cultural moment, one that revealed how fragile his dominance could be when confronted with unshakable proof. And in the end, as the dust settled, the message rang clear. Power alone cannot bury the truth. No matter how loud the denials, no matter how fierce the outbursts, evidence speaks louder. Crockett's words had captured that truth in its purest form. For the millions who had watched, the conclusion was unforgettable. The battle was not just between Trump and Crockett, but between manipulation and accountability, deception and honesty. What remained was the image of a leader undone and a nation forced to reckon with the meaning of that exposure. It was not just politics, it was history being written in real time, with one furious outburst and one unwavering voice standing as proof that truth, once unleashed, cannot be silenced.